Robert Kiyosaki, and this is another segment in the Capitalist Manifesto. It's my latest book coming out. And I wrote Capitalist Manifesto, as I've said several times of these programs, is that I went to a different type of school. I went to military school in New York, and while at military school, we were taught to read the Communist Manifesto. And then I joined the US Marine Corps, and I went to Vietnam, and I actually saw communism at work. So the Capitalist Manifesto is kind of a warning, because we've been warned all of these years, since I was a kid. We were warned that communism was going to take over America. That was the intent of Khrushchev when I was a little boy. And today I can see it coming true. So the Capitalist Manifesto, these videos, is we're interviewing people who have actually left, let's say, communist, Marxist, or socialist countries and actually come to America. And they're going to issue their warnings, because as we're speaking right now, we just passed another, I think, 1.9 trillion. I mean, who's counting anymore? How much more money are we going to print and give to, quote unquote, the poor people? And that's the end of capitalism, or free market capitalism as we know it. So I'm very honored to have a special guest today. Her name is Debbie D'Souza. Her husband is infamous, is Dinesh D'Souza, and he is a documentary film guy, and he's always controversial. And his latest documentary is called Trump Card, and then A Death of a Nation was before that, and then my favorite, Hillary's America, you know, if there's such a thing for the deplorables. And then in 2016, Obama's America. So Debbie's husband, Dinesh, is a hero of mine, because it's amazing he hasn't been taken out yet, because he says things that are today are dangerous. You know, it's the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. So Debbie, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And you were born in Venezuela. You left in 1976, and you're an American citizen. Your English is flawless. It's amazing. But the thing that I was excited to talk to you about, because Dinesh said to talk to you, is Venezuela is possibly the richest country in the world. You have more oil than any other country in the world. And then, so what happened? What happened to the richest country in the world? I mean, what is your story, by the way? Let's start with that. But that's why I wanted to hear what you have to say, and any warnings you have for people who will think, oh, don't worry, equality is going to come to the world, and we'll all be equal. Anyway, so
Yes.
what do you have to say?
Well, on that note of Venezuela being one of the richest countries in the world, it has incredible resources, not just oil, but it has the most gold reserves in the world. So it also has uranium, enriched uranium, which is something that is sought after to make nuclear weapons, as you know. So the little jewel in South America is a wanted jewel by a lot of our enemies. And so that is very scary and frightening. And in order for them to go into that country, it has to become the cesspool that it's become, unfortunately, because of those policies, because of socialism. So yes, I was born in Venezuela, as I told you earlier. My mother is from Texas. She's Mexican American from the Rio Grande Valley, where the border crisis is happening right now as we speak. And then my father was Venezuelan. And I've always taken an interest in politics, both in Venezuela and in the United States. I was a political science major. So I've always been very interested in what's going on in Venezuela. And I started to watch it as it went down from a prosperous country to what it is today. And so I can tell you from the beginning, if you like. Just let me know when. Yes. So basically in 1998, Venezuela was, it was run by a two-party system, much like we are today. It had a center-right and a center-left party. So not a whole lot of difference between the two parties. It was not socialist, though they did have a social welfare program, much as we do today here in America. So they did take care of some of the poor in Venezuela. but it was not socialist per se. It was a free market system. We did have, although you always hear, oh, it was either, you were either very rich or very poor. No, that is not true. There was a middle class. My family was upper middle class. So we were considered wealthy, though not millionaires. But there was a diverse group of socioeconomic, people in Venezuela. So it wasn't just rich and poor. But when Hugo Chavez came in, not only did he come in to talk about the socioeconomic, disparity or unequalness, he also, interestingly enough, talked about not being racially mixed as well. So he had a beef with the white people in Venezuela, believe it or not. So if that sounds familiar, he went in there and he basically attacked the Venezuelan ancestors that were white, the white settlers, including, of course, Christopher Columbus. He had a hatred of Christopher Columbus that to this day I don't understand, but I guess now with this woke culture, it's kind of coming back to me. So he hated him because he said that he was committing genocide to the indigenous people in South America. And so he blamed the white man for the misery of the indigenous and the Afro-Black man. And so
It sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does sound very familiar. He prided himself in saying that he had Afro-indigenous roots. And so he was very, very much against anybody that didn't share those same roots with him. And one of the first things that he did before becoming president is he lied about who he was and what his intentions were. People asked him, he was on several talk shows before, as he was running. By the way, he ran as a third-party candidate, not on the socialist platform, by the way. So they asked him flat out, are you a socialist? Do you want to socialize Venezuela? He absolutely denied it. He said, oh no, I not only do I not want to socialize Venezuela, but I want to bring industry to the country. I want to make it prosperous. I want to do this. I want to do that. So he denied he was a socialist, and he denied having any kind of connection with the Castro brothers from Cuba, because that was something that people questioned him on. They thought he was a little too buddy with them, and he denied it. He said that although he did know them, he was not friends with them, and nor did he intend to make any kind of connection with Cuba. So the Venezuelan people were very, they were hesitant at first, and then they believed him. My grandparents, for instance, voted for him the first time because they thought he was an honest man, and he did want to clean up corruption, which, by the way, there was corruption in Venezuela in the political parties. And so he came in there saying he wanted to clean all that up. So people really did not think that he was going to destroy Venezuela when they voted for him, obviously. So that was how he came in. Once he was in, he started with the division, right? The division, not just socioeconomic division, but race division. So he started basically a racial divide that I had never seen in that country before. As a child growing up in Venezuela, it was a very multicultural country. I don't know if people know or understand, Venezuela had all kinds of people living in it, nationalities. I mean, they had Chinese, they had Japanese, they had Indian, Italian, a lot of Italians, because Vespuccio named it Little Venice, by the way. Venezuela means Little Venice. So there are a lot of Italians in Venezuela. So, Spaniards, all, Blacks from Africa. So it was a very multicultural country. But nobody ever had any problem with it. There was no, nobody made an issue out of their race or ethnicity. It was just, we were Venezuelans. Well, that changed with Hugo Chavez.
If I may
Because
ask you first, what is your racial background?
So I have, well, interesting you asked that. I have, not only do I have Italian, but I have Spanish, I have indigenous, and I also have Afro blood, DNA.
Well,
So
it's a beautiful combination. My
I know.
compliments.
I yes, I represent the entire world, and
That's
so and I'm very proud of it. I don't think I think it's a wonderful thing. I don't know, a lot of times on the left, they love to make things like that an issue, and they like to make you one thing or another, or make it something like you're a victim because you're this or that. And I think it's great. I love it. So, but Hugo Chavez had other plans, and I don't know if you recall back in the summer when Antifa and BLM were pulling down statues of white settlers, and anyway,
and
Hugo
Christopher
Chavez.
Columbus. And Christopher
Yes,
Columbus.
yes. So Hugo Chavez did the same thing. They toppled down the Christopher Columbus statue that was on the coast in Caracas. It was a really big statue, and they decided they didn't want anything to do with Christopher Columbus, or white people for that matter. And so that was the beginning of the end for Venezuela.
So
Uh,
when you see, not to be racist, but Black Lives Matter and the woke culture and what's it called, diversity, politics of diversity, and all this other stuff, does that bring back memories to you?
Yes, it does. And that is, like I said, that was the beginning of the end. That's how it started in Venezuela. With that, which then led to the socioeconomic, that rich people need to not only give everything they have to the poor people, but that is essentially how they get votes. And so that's how Hugo Chavez basically stayed in power. He first of all lied about, he said, listen, if I'm not doing a good job, I want to be recalled. I want you to have a recall election, and I want you to vote me out, because I want to do what's best for Venezuela. So that was a lie, because when they did do a recall election, Mr. Chavez decided that he needed to find a way to cheat to win. So he decided to try to create a system in which would be very possible to do that. And so he, I guess, looked for someone to make a machine, a voting machine that could, in essence, change the vote count for him, and it did. And that machine was called Smartmatic. And so Mr. Chavez stayed in power because of that machine in 2004. A friend of mine who was one of the leading champions against this, and started these groups to try to investigate the voter integrity and vote fraud that was occurring in Venezuela. She was demonized. She was called all sorts of names, conspiracy theorist, you name it. Her life was in essence destroyed. She was a political candidate, and she did win an election there. She was in the assembly, but she was in the minority party, so she was never able to do really anything to combat that fraud. So Hugo Chavez was able to stay on and do a lot of damage.
Wait. So when you saw the voter machine fraud and mail-in, and I think there's only 300 million Americans, but there are 900 million votes, and then Lou Dobbs, is it Lou Dobbs of Fox? He gets taken off because he criticized the voting machines.
Right.
When you
So
see all that, is it like deja
yeah.
vu all over again?
Yeah, well, and the thing about it in here in this country, as in Venezuela, you can't talk about it, because if I talk to you about it, your show will not get aired, and you know how that all goes. So we have, in a sense, been censored. And I'm not saying that this vote was exactly like Venezuelans. I'm not Venezuela's vote. I'm not saying that. Nor am I saying that there was any kind of cheating that made the difference in the election here. We just never had an opportunity to really find out. And if we even bring it up or talk about it, we're censored to the point of thinking, what country are we in? Is this a free country or isn't it? Are we allowed to talk about something that troubles us, or aren't we? So yes, this is very troubling, and I think even worse than that. It's the fact that we can't do it in a free country that bothers me even more than cheating itself.
So let's
So
have a question. Do you have any
yes.
message to Americans and to the free world right now? What warning would you have?
Well, the warning really is twofold. It's that you need to make sure that you understand the political party and their platform and what you're voting for. Because I don't blame people that voted for the Biden team if they are socialists and if they truly want to go down that road. But I almost blame those that feel like they don't need to research anything and they believe everything that they read or see on television, because the platform is very clear. They want to pit one group of people against another. And promising free healthcare, promising free college, promising free stuff, is a way that they feel like they can make sure that people vote for them so that they can keep those things. And what they don't understand is that money does not grow on trees in either Venezuela or America. And we will run out of money. And once you run out of that money, everyone will be equally miserable. They want to make everybody equally rich. Well, that's impossible, but equally miserable is the way we're going to go. So when you see, a political party, in a sense, act like the political party in Venezuela that brought that country to its knees, I think you should pause and understand what you're voting for. If it's
So,
anti-fossil fuel, anti-gun control legislation, free healthcare, free this, free that, attack on the First Amendment, you should go, you know what? That is very similar to the party that destroyed Venezuela.
so when you look at the candidate that's running today, and you don't have to say anything because you don't want to get woked or deplatformed today, but when you see like Elizabeth Warren, she just says it's only 2 cents or 3 cents. In other words, they're going to take 3% of the richest money. And Biden just says we're just going to tax the rich. And then you have what's his name, Bernie Sanders,
Bernie Sanders, yes.
and you see Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. Without getting yourself in any trouble, what goes through your mind when you see them? I mean, they drive me nuts, but anyway.
Yes. Well, first of all, these are the people that will not be in the poor camp, okay? Because what happens is that these liberal elites literally run everything, but they're above it, right? So in Venezuela, there is a group of people called Chavistas, and they are the people on the left. They are the ones that are with the regime, which, by the way, I think I didn't tell you how Maduro came into power, but these are all the people that are on his camp. And they're not poor, they're not hurting for money, and they're just fine. So of course the Bernies and the AOCs and all of these people, even Kamala Harris, she's one of the most liberal, was one of the most liberal senators in the Senate. These people are going to be just fine. So they're okay with taking your money and my money and giving it to other people and kind of redistributing it. but they're not going to be involved. So of course I see them as hypocrites, the hypocrites that they are, because they're going to be just fine. Not to mention, they're going to actually become even richer by doing this
They're
very
called
thing.
plutocrats, aren't they?
Yeah, and Hugo Chavez, by the way, became a billionaire. He died a billionaire. His daughter is worth about $4 billion today. $4 billion today.
Did she get it from Hunter Biden by any chance?
I think they might be related. Yes.
So then you have this guy Maduro. He's in charge today, right? So
Yes,
how did he come up?
right. So he was Hugo Chavez's vice president. And when Hugo Chavez was diagnosed with cancer in I guess it was 2012, he died in 2013. Maduro was his vice president. And there's a whole story about Maduro and his lack of, let's just say, brain cells. He's not a very smart man. In fact, not to disparage any bus driver, but he was a bus driver before he got into politics. And there is even a story about him not actually being a natural born citizen in Venezuela because he was born in Colombia. And in the Constitution, the Venezuelan Constitution, you're supposed to be a born citizen to serve as president of that country. So there was even a little bit of like, hey, this guy's not even legitimate. He's not even supposed to be president. So anyway, so he came in that way. And of course, they kept using these machines in every election after that one, right? So they, in the middle of the night, the vote count would change, and there goes the winner, Nicolas Maduro now, so he has won the elections in Venezuela fraudulently. And the reason that he was, so let's see, about maybe last year was when Juan Guaido was actually recognized as the interim president of Venezuela because of the fact that there was evidence that there was some fraud. And so they basically said, listen, Maduro cannot legitimately be the president of Venezuela. Many countries back that. And so he was, so Guaido was the president of the National Assembly, which was controlled at the time by the minority group, so by the opposition. And that's the reason that he was there. But, Maduro never stepped down, and the military never acknowledged Guaido. So Maduro still had control of the military in Venezuela, still had control of all of the, I should call it the thug groups in Venezuela that go after people in the streets. They go after citizens, if they're not touting the socialist line. And these are all criminals sanctioned by the Maduro regime. So Maduro has all of the, I should say, the guns. And so that's why he stays in control.
So that's a perfect segue. When you saw the U.S. Capitol being so-called attacked by terrorists or whatever it is, and today it's barbed wire all around it, and thousands and thousands and thousands of U.S. troops protecting the Capitol, what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, I think it's complete overkill. I hate, no pun intended, but these so-called insurrectionists didn't even have weapons. First and foremost, they didn't go in there to change the government. They went in there demanding a fair vote count. So this doesn't even, it's not even close to what the regime does in Venezuela with the thugs. The thugs actually remind me more of Antifa and what they do and how they do it. They go after, business owners. They go after citizens. And so that is more along the lines of what these people do. I think that the whole, insurrectionist, whatever they want to call it, was basically a demand from people to get listened to, which wasn't happening. Now, granted, I don't think that the way they went about it was the best way to do it, especially because an innocent woman was killed in this attack, and it wasn't even that she had a weapon. She did not. So that shouldn't have happened. But no, I mean, I don't see those people in any way, shape, or form like the thugs that run the streets in Venezuela.
So do you still have family in Venezuela?
Yes, I do. All of my father's family, all my father's side of the family is still there. I have an elderly aunt who's 88 years old, who we help because she has, I can give you an example of how bad it is. She used to get a pension back a few years ago of about 10,000. It was the equivalent of about 10,000 US dollars. That same amount, the equivalent of that is now about 25 cents a month. So a $10,000 severance or pension is now 25 cents. So obviously, if she didn't have family here, she would not be able to live on 25 cents a month. So it's horrible. The situation is really bad. People have to be very creative. I have a very um, I should say I have a cousin who is an engineer by trade. He got his degree in electrical engineering, and he's very crafty. He has built his own generator. He goes off in the mountains and kind of camps out every once in a while when they lose electricity in Venezuela, because, by the way, the grid system was completely destroyed in Venezuela because they too try to go the route of the let's do hydro energy instead of using the fossil fuels that we have. And they ruined it because there were terrible droughts in Venezuela. So hydro energy just, couldn't cut it, right? So they have rolling blackouts a lot in Venezuela still to this day. So my cousin does all kinds of things. He sells, car parts. He does all kinds of things to survive. When he could have been very successful as an electrical engineer in Venezuela. But see, getting a degree in Venezuela back in the 90s, now you're poor. Now you're extremely dependent on people's generosity to live.
So one of my favorite sessions, and we'll end on this, is food. We understand people have lost a lot of weight, which might be a good thing. But anyway, what is that
Yeah,
because this
yes.
food is gone, or what is happening there? What do they say about food supply? Your family,
So the
your
food
family.
supply, yeah, so it went away because a lot of the suppliers of the, rice and beans and all kinds of staples were no longer allowed to make a profit in Venezuela. So they basically, because of that, created a unnatural food shortage. They shouldn't have had one, but they had one created because of that. Because the government came in and said, "Hey, you can't make a profit. You can't sell it at this price. You can't do this. You can't do that." So a lot of the food suppliers, a lot of the food chains had to leave Venezuela. So it created a food shortage. So today, people have to go to several grocery stores just to get the staples. And they stamp you, if you've already gotten bread for the week, you can't go back and get more. If you've gotten your eggs for the week, you can't go back and get more. So that's why people are losing weight. There's basically cans of tuna that are so old they've expired, and they still sell it, and people still eat expired tuna. So yes, people, very desperate people, unfortunately had to resort to eating pets and stray animals. And it's just horrific to even think that that could happen in a country like Venezuela.
Such a rich, 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 rich country. So anyway, Debbie, thank you very much. Give my regards to Dinesh. Tell him to keep up the good work with the documentaries. And I really appreciate you sharing your side of the story because, as I said, a lot of people don't know. They hear all the promises being made about equality and we're all going to get along and be a utopian society, but it doesn't work.
It does not work. It's equal misery.
Right. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching the Rich Dad program on Capitalist Manifesto, and we're battling Communist Manifesto. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching this program.